And this is a talk I'm particularly excited about. And our next talk is going to be Roneil, who's going to be talking about the future of streaming and Audius. So it's been a pretty interesting week for him and Audius, and there's a lot of things that have happened this week in the world of entertainment. And without further ado, I'll let Roneil kick off and tell us about what's happening. Welcome, Roneil.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Karthik, and everyone watching. Thanks so much for taking the time. I'm excited to share a little bit more about what we've been up to lately, and then more broadly, I think kind of keep the focus here on what's been happening in our community with community ownership in general. It's been, I think, just a really exciting kind of undercurrent of use cases that are emerging around how we can build the next generation of platforms in a way that actually enfranchises the users of those platforms with control of the underlying protocol and community. So yeah, to kick us off though, actually, I did want to take a minute to recognize, we've had some really cool folks submit stuff under the kind of under the Audius prizes in the hackathon, and Catalog ended up being the winner. D-Beats and Eero were the two runner-ups that we selected. All really cool projects. I would suggest you try them out and play around. I think it's a really cool way to kind of show how we can kind of help artists start to engage with some of the concepts that us as the ETH community have been developing for so long. So yeah, just wanted to take a moment to recognize those. Just as a quick background, what is Audius? For many of you all, this might be the first time you're hearing about us. We're a digital streaming service that connects fans directly with artists and exclusive new music. That direct is the key piece, though. So Audius is fully decentralized. It's been operated by the community for the last year or so since we launched. And just last week, actually, there was a kind of the protocol crossed over into being Mainnet, basically the actual kind of token powering the protocol being live, actual value being able to change hands in the system. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, this is just an example of an artist's profile on Audius. So they can upload tracks, share this profile out with folks. Folks can come discover, consume it. The big question this probably raises is, why do we care about decentralized music or community-owned music distribution? Just put very simply, the way that the music industry is structured from kind of a revenue perspective is I think reflective of the more systemic issues there around the number of middlemen and the amount of control that is exerted by folks who are not actually the ones creating music and creating the stuff that is actually driving all of this interesting behavior, right? So artists only capture 12% of music revenue today. And that's really what Audius exists to change, to allow artists to own their own means of digital distribution. So yeah, as I mentioned, we launched publicly in September 2019, and really excited to share today, actually, or yesterday officially, was when we for the first time crossed over 1 million monthly listeners on Audius. So that means in the last 30 days, over 1 million people came to Audius and listened to music here. We've had 150,000 tracks shared by 40,000 artists. And we see over 40 million requests to the Audius API to pull content, pull metadata, pull whatever every month right now. So all of our stats are public because all of the nodes that run on the network are public, and you can actually just go to the dashboard.audius.org link there and see in real time what's happening, what tracks are trending, who's sharing stuff. And it's been just really cool, I think, to see a lot of kind of household names in music actually getting really excited about decentralization, right? And the Web3 tech that our whole community has been working on together for so long. So to get into this, like kind of the actual meat of what I'm excited to talk about here is what we tried to build with this initial launch of the Audius token that happened last Friday was a means to more scalably and equitably distribute ownership among the users of a platform over time, right? And we're not the first ones to do this. There are a lot of experiments that have happened in our community, and I think Uniswap's recently was one of the most successful, right? Where they actually were able to kind of look at retroactive usage of Uniswap and kind of basically kind of reward that behavior proportionally. In Audius, we kind of tried to adapt that way of thinking to what are the kind of top users of a music service, right? In our case, there was basically a formula that determined kind of a score or relative score to other users based on tracks shared, number of followers, number of times you've engaged with other content on Audius, and a number of other things. It was just really cool to see like all of these artists and creators on our network actually like starting to learn about and engage with crypto for the first time in this way. So Audius was always has been decentralized since our launch in September 2019, but a lot of that detail I think we were able to abstract away from the end user quite effectively using things like meta transactions and other flows, such that like all of those interactions were actually making their way on chain, oftentimes to this kind of Ethereum sidechain called POA network that many of y'all are likely familiar with. But in this case, we were actually able to use that meta transaction flow to kind of let people see, oh, I have audio tokens to claim. They could click claim and claim those into their wallet, which is a non-custodial wallet that every user of Audius has had since creating an account. So yeah, it ended up being just I think a really neat moment for our community, and I think sets the stage going forward, solidifying like the expected uses of the token, which the three are kind of governance, so voting on changes to the protocol, securing the protocol, so staking on those nodes that I mentioned that are hosting content and hosting metadata, and feature access. So artists can actually stake these tokens to access additional features within Audius over time. So I guess like going forward, I'm really excited to see how both our community, the Audius community, as well as other projects within our broader ETH and crypto community start to think about distributing ownership in ways that actually sort of enfranchise users in the growth of the tools that they're helping to build value in, right? I think we're among the first, I think, to be doing this for like a more end user consumery product. The level of like education that had to happen among our user base was quite a bit higher than I think it was for like a lot of DeFi projects, for example, that have done similar things. But I think the thing I just really want to call out here is I think Audius is a small part of this, but more broadly in our community, we're at this kind of inflection point where like this kind of the ethos and idea of community ownership is one that like we're actually we all have the tools now to put actual like effort towards realizing these things, right? In the case of Audius, the way that made the most sense to execute this was via issuance over time. So there's 70 to 100 million new audio tokens minted every year by the network, and those get distributed to the community via staking and via other mechanics that the community has the opportunity to vote on and vote into place over time. So that's about it. I wanted to keep some time here for questions. So I'll kind of kick things back over there. But thank you all for listening. Thank you all for stopping through, and excited to be here and be part of this whole community.
Thank you so much, Roneil. This is super exciting to hear. I feel like you're like downplaying this a little bit, but it's a huge milestone for you and the team. 1 million users is nothing small of amazing and incredible. So, congrats on reaching that. By far, absolutely the biggest app that there is in the Web3 ecosystem. So, congrats.
Thank you so much, Karthik.
So we do have a couple questions coming in. The first one I have is kind of who are some of these artists that you'd really love to adopt Audius and just a decentralized platform in general as kind of their first choice, and sort of how do you go about pitching it to them as a platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think we see Audius really serving a broad spectrum of users, everyone from kind of the like bedroom producer, DJ, rapper who's like just making music for the first time and wants to have some place to share it and have an equal opportunity to build a following in the same way that like platforms in the past had allowed before changing rules on folks and things like this, right? All the way up to kind of, we do have a number of like larger artists that I highlighted there, like Skrillex, Russ, for example, just uploaded some content to Audius for the first time. RL Grimes, Halloween mix that he puts out every year is out on Audius right now. If anyone's into that, definitely go check it out. So we really want Audius to serve as this tool to build and own a following and then monetize that following how you see fit as an artist, right? And I think that need is one that spans like all sizes of artists, right? At the small end of the spectrum, the need is really to find your audience and find your footing on like what are the types of things that you enjoy making that you're able to like start to find an audience that also enjoys listening to. And then at the bigger end of things, it starts to, the sort of lines of questioning and thinking from artists starts to move more towards like, how does owning my audience actually help me like be better from a business perspective? Like, how does this help me actually have a better business, right? And I think that is, fulfilling that side of things is the challenge for our community going forward. But I think this drop that happened last Friday was a really important first step there. Like we heard so much great feedback from artists across the spectrum saying things like, this gave them the confidence to continue working on music full time when they were like getting ready to give it up, for example. Or there were just so many things that like I think for artists to get to see their work rewarded in a really meaningful way, right? When oftentimes just I think artists just have been so, I guess, like mistreated generally by platforms of the past. That's what makes them so excited about just having a seat at the table, right? That's like all they want, and it's heartbreaking to hear the stories of what have happened elsewhere. But it also feels we feel really fortunate to have this opportunity.
No, that's really amazing to hear. I think it is very much about finding a platform and people that believe in you, and you kind of made that case really obvious for everybody. We do have a couple more questions, so I'll just kind of ask them in order, and we'll see kind of based on time how many more we can go into. But there's clearly a lot of new advantages now in the Web3 world, especially as Audius uses the best of both. And kind of how do you think about Audius and just in general, the more decentralized streaming platforms sort of integrating and innovating on top of things like NFTs and then kind of introducing visual arts on top of just music and entertainment. And curious to see if you've ever explored any of those things before or what may or may not be possible.
Yeah, so the coolest part about Audius and I think about decentralized web platforms more generally is that anyone can build anything they want on these things, right? Like there is no kind of like Audius private API as such. Like when you think about how SoundCloud, for example, like there are features that are available within the SoundCloud app that are not in their API. Like the API that the first party client, the open source first party client consumes is the same one that like everyone else gets, right? Like all of that is there. So as a natural next step from that, we've already had a bunch of folks start to experiment with things like audio NFTs that are hosted on Audius. So you can upload tracks privately to Audius and actually use sort of the decentralized hosting part of this protocol to host an audio NFT. With that
Super
being the
cool
first
idea.
step. Oh, what was that? Sorry.
That's a super cool idea. I don't think I've
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah, and then the step beyond that is actually like with the Audius kind of content permissioning primitives, you could start to have audio NFTs that are only playbackable by the person holding the NFT, for example, or maybe whoever they designate. So I think like just this, I guess the broader or the more precise answer to your question is like we see Audius as this kind of like platform building block that can serve the use case of streaming really well, but like our community's ambition is not to go do everything for everyone. I think there are a ton of folks in our community who've already stepped up to say like, this is something I want to build, right? And I'm just going to go do it. And that's the coolest thing to see, right? Because we can't do it all. Our team working on this, and even our own community, which is the tens of thousands of artists and a few thousand folks in Discord and elsewhere. There's just too much to do for us, right? So yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, we are running out of time, so I will have to move on to the next talk. But Roneil, I wish you all the best with scaling Audius even more, and we hope to hear the 2 million monthly active user announcement soon. And I really hope we can get Tanya to message you shortly. So,
well, you all will hear about the 2 million user mark first. Karthik and everyone at ETH Global, thanks so much for having me.